dad was actually he's a pretty quick adapter to technology, which is cool. So we had our first computer like I think in the early 90s, and it was like a PC. It was giant. It's like super heavy, like bulky. The monitor was like huge. It's not like these flat screens nowadays that people have, right?
You would have the back.
Oh yeah. It was like a giant TV, and I was like, dude, this thing's like 50 pounds easily. And so that was our first computer. Was like the Pentium 1. It was like 75 megahertz, which is like nothing nowadays, like ridiculous. But that was like, oh my God, the fact that we had it was just amazing.
Welcome to the Magnetic Mismatch Show. My name is Linda.
And this is Will, and this was the fifth take. Fifth intro, because we kept goofing around.
Alexa.
Hey, don't say that. It's too loud. The Alexa's right there. It's going to start answering. Watch. People will hear it in the background. So,
Alexa, torture Will.
You can't delegate that, or maybe you should. So how's your day going so far?
Good.
Yeah. We had dumplings for lunch, homemade.
I know. Courtesy of me. So traditional.
People are complaining about this quarantine, but I feel like this quarantine has been incredible for me in terms of, if we're forced to stay home, we're forced to stay home, right? But I've been getting a lot of home cooked snacks and meals, and, you've been doing a lot of cooking.
Yeah.
Have you been having fun?
Yeah.
I've definitely been benefiting from that.
Yeah, and it shows.
Oh, wow.
It's starting to show.
I kind of set myself up for that one. So, but, talking about the time at home, it kind of brings us to today's topic, because we were talking a little bit about just, I don't know, it was feeling like reminiscent a little bit, right?
Yeah, and I think another thing is that on the internet right now, there's a lot of articles on restaurants and shops that are shutting down because they can't make it through.
That's crazy.
This time. And it kind of made me want to reminisce about my childhood, because not too long ago, we were taking a drive to our childhood neighborhood.
Yeah.
And a lot of the shops and a lot of things that we used to go to are no longer there.
Yeah, that's really sad.
It made me kind of sad.
Yeah.
Yeah, and especially another neighborhood that I grew up in when I was a child before I moved. It doesn't even look, it's nothing like it used to be. Mm-hmm. It has been completely been like almost remodeled,
gentrified, and yeah, a lot of the stores that you remember as a kid, or businesses or local shops, it's kind of going out of business, or it's not there anymore. That's crazy.
Yeah.
But what's interesting too is that when you think back to when we were kids, we grew up in the 90s, so that's kind of what we're talking about today.
Yeah.
Right. What it was like.
We were kids in the 90s. Yeah. So it's more like what it was like to be a kid in the
growing up in the 90s. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Because I think back then, like, we were under age 16 for sure at that time.
For sure.
For that decade.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's a fun topic. I know we were like lighting up when we were talking about like, oh, that would be a cool podcast topic,
Yeah. Something about looking back at your childhood, it's so I don't know. It's such a simple time.
Yeah, it's heartwarming and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a blessing, but I had an amazing childhood.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So all I can say is just good things about my childhood.
Yeah. So that's why we kind of chose today's topic, right? It kind of triggered what was happening, kind of triggered a little trip down memory lane, and so we started thinking about, oh, what was it like back then? Because that for us, that was what, like, over 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Maybe 30 now.
I think people growing up in the 90s, it's such a special time, because this was a time before the internet. The
Hmm.
internet was still in its infancy stage.
Yeah. The
So we got to experience life with before having the internet and smartphone, and life with the internet and the smartphone.
yeah
I think there's no other generations really.
that grew up with that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just
it's a very unique
it's a very
generation.
unique generation. So we got to relate to our parents' generations
Hmm.
and the kids now, right? We're like that in between.
Oh yeah, kids nowadays growing up, like everything is like internet, digital.
Yeah.
They have no clue what some of the things were like before,
Yeah.
what life was like before.
They're like, what's a floppy disk?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. No
What's a
clue.
CD player?
I know. So, I mean, it's a pretty broad topic.
It is. It is.
Yeah. So, where do we want to start, though? I think one of the things for me was thinking about like how we consume information. Because, like you said, the internet is such a big part of today. Like, everything is like you can't even imagine life without internet now, right?
Yeah.
So, what was it like back then when the internet was in its infancy, when it
Mhm.
was a kid, too, growing up?
Okay, so my family was pretty late on getting a computer. So we functioned for a good period of time without having a computer.
Hmm.
And I didn't really care for a computer for a very long time. I actually didn't even buy a computer until probably second year of college.
What?
Yeah, I didn't even I didn't even get a smartphone until I went to grad school.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, it's because I couldn't afford it because it was very
It was
expensive.
pretty expensive.
Yeah, but I learned to navigate life without it.
Well, you didn't know. You didn't
Yeah,
know what was on the
missing.
other side.
Now I can't go back, but that's another story.
Right, right, right. I think it's like if you just didn't know what it was like because it just
Yeah,
you didn't know what you were missing because you didn't have it in the first place,
but
right?
it was nice to not have it as well because it makes you kind of resourceful. I used to get like information from library books. I
Yeah, that
would
was
make
the main way you get information.
yeah, that and like uh the yellow pages, newspapers, magazines.
Oh my God,
I
magazines.
it was kind of special. I used to make a whole day just to go to the library
Hmm.
and get lost in the books, and it's just that the smell of an old book is so I don't know,
You
something
like that
about it.
moldy smell?
Yeah,
I'm
I
just
kind
kidding.
of do.
No, I know what you're talking about, like the ink and the pages and things like that.
Yeah, it smells so good. It's just walking in there, it's just so comforting.
Isn't it crazy though? Like when you think about how we get information today, how we consume information, it's literally in the palm of your hands,
Yeah, it's
right?
just Google it. I'm gonna go
Yeah.
just Google it.
If you don't know something, you would just type it into your smartphone and boom, you've got an answer,
Yeah.
right? Instantly. Whereas when we were growing up as kids in that era, before the internet really kind of blew up and took off, you're right. You would go to the library. I mean, people obviously still go to the library today, but back then that was kind of like the main way. If you didn't know something, that's what you would have to do, right?
Mhm.
Like
You
physically go.
buy yourself a set of
Oh my
encyclopedias
God. Remember those
and carry it
encyclopedias?
around in school.
Totally forgot about those. People probably don't even know what encyclopedias are today.
I think they have a digital version
Yeah.
now.
Wiki, Wikipedia.
Is it?
Yeah,
No,
probably.
it's not.
Yeah. Now I'm sure they have a digital encyclopedia, but it's obsolete now. Like
Mhm.
who actually uses or needs that? You're using search engines, right?
Yeah.
So it's a different time. But like I said, kids today, probably growing up, have no clue what an encyclopedia is. Maybe they read about it in history books. I don't know. But do you remember those? Like people would come to your door knocking and they would sell you a collection of
Yeah.
books.
Or inside a magazine, they'll have the little card where you tear off the card and you mark
Oh,
the item you want with a check, and then
mm.
you mail it away, and then in about 6 to 8 weeks you hope you get something in the mail.
Oh, you'd have to purchase like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's another thing, huh? Like shopping and things like that. Things are so different for sure compared to back then.
Yeah, because back then you would rely on magazines, books, and it takes time to print and edit. The information is not instantaneous
Yeah.
like it is now.
Right.
But I just feel like with the instant information now, we just consume information differently. I
Right.
feel like unless the information is catchy to your eyes, with the type of information that just shows up on your feed, it's so much that unless it's catchy, then you don't read it.
Yeah, I mean, they say the average attention span is under 3 seconds, right?
Yeah. Whereas before, you know, a book takes years and years to develop and research, and you know, the information is not as abundant, so everything was more like filtered, where I feel like there's less
Well, there's
like
not as much
like
overload, right?
yeah, and like less like fake news and information and stuff like there are today, you know, because now it's just like they just want to create news so people can read the content.
I think it's more apparent, right? It's more abundant. So like, because it's so much easier, like you said, to create the content and put it out there and more quickly.
And no one really filters through it.
It's hard. There's
Yeah.
too much. Even if
Yeah.
you want to filter, like how? There's
Yeah.
no way, right? Versus the flow of information back then was much more restrictive, right? Or it was harder to access and get what you need, right? So you're right. That's the downside too to today.
Yeah. And to create a book, you know, also you need a team to proofread it, to double check the information before it goes on to print. So there is another layer of almost filter.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you know, obviously there's a downside to that too, because information become outdated.
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
Like back then, you mean?
Yeah. And you know, a book from 10 years ago may not be relevant today. Some are, some aren't.
Yeah. Some pros and cons. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because then like back then, when you by the time you read the newspaper or some piece of article or information, it was already outdated.
Yes, things could have changed already.
Outdated for a long time, right? Versus now, it's like if there's something's happening right now, you could literally get an update about it at that moment.
Yeah, it's like an earthquake. I'm gonna go
crazy.
on Twitter.
Yeah, like a minute later. It's unbelievable, right? Remember
people are talking about it on Twitter.
Yeah, the other day, right? Or not other day, like the other week or something. There was like, you felt like an earthquake and you're like, I don't know. I didn't feel it.
Yeah. Let's go on Twitter and check.
And then it was there. I was like, oh, they were posting about it. I was like, what? That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So definitely the way we consumed information and got information was different, and that's changed a lot. Pros and cons, right? Like you said. But I think also the way we communicate has changed pretty drastically too, right?
Yeah. I think now, you know, most of the people you know, or your friends and family, they all have social media, and a lot of them, you know, they constantly post updates about their lives and their kids, which is not a bad thing, right? It keeps us connected. But I feel like the fact that it's so easily accessible to you, it's like when you hang out with them, you don't feel like you're really catching up with anything that's new, because you see it.
Dude, you already know.
You already know. It's not.
You're like Facebook stalking your friends or your family, and you know exactly what they're up to.
But you don't need to stalk them. You just need to log on, and it's there.
That's true. Right? It's popping up.
It's just popping up. So when you see them, it's like, oh, I had a kid. Oh, I kind of knew that.
Yeah, right. It's like, oh, cool.
It's not like, really?
But you still have to act like you're surprised too, even though you saw a glimpse of it on their post or something, right?
Yeah. Or like, you know, I don't know. Uncle Timmy got into college. Oh yeah, we knew that. It was on your post, you know?
Yeah, that's true. Which is very different than before, right? I mean, I remember back then it was like you would actually have to call your friend or see them in person and then like schedule like an actual hangout to catch up and to, I don't know, communicate, right? It wasn't like now where you can instant message, you can text, you can catch up. Like you said, you can see it on social media already.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different.
It's a little different. And keep in mind, back then, it was very expensive to call long distance as well. They used to, it's not like now where, you know, it's free. It doesn't matter what state they're in, unless you're calling out of the country. But
Oh
you have
man, that's
you
right. I forgot about
yeah, but
that.
now you have internet calling. Right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's not as much of a barrier. But back then, to call out of state, it was like 20-30 cents a minute.
Mm-hmm.
So every conversation was very special. I remember my mom, she would only call her dad, my grandpa, like once a week for 30 minutes or an hour. And that was like their catch up time, because
Yeah,
it's very precious, because one phone call can cost you $20-30
it's crazy.
easy.
Yeah, you had to be strategic about your calling, like
Yeah, and you don't just call to just talk about
chit chat.
nothing. Yeah,
Usually
I
something
noticed they used
important.
to have like very meaningful conversations. Like, my grandpa would give her an update on his life, his health, and so did my grandma. And then, my mom was very strategic about who she called in a week, because if not, your phone bill could run up to hundreds of dollars.
That's interesting because then you're right. Like now that it's free and it's totally available, it doesn't mean as much, right? In terms of you could call anytime. It's like whatever, right?
Yeah.
Versus before, you got to make sure that conversation and that time is well spent and that it's quality.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And I think people made more of an effort, right, to stay in touch with people, to hang out and things like that. Because, like you said, there's more motivation when you don't really know what that person's been up to, and you're eager and excited to see them and catch up and to see what's been happening in their lives, right?
Because all these information are new.
Yeah,
Like, you don't
it's
know
exciting to
any.
hear about.
Yeah, you don't know, and they don't know anything about you too. So it's exciting to talk about it with them.
Yeah, not to say that people don't anymore, of
I
course.
mean, yeah, I mean, it's still good to see your friends and family.
Hopefully.
I mean, I always appreciate that, but it's just a different time.
Yeah,
Right.
right. And people post about everything too. So even
Yeah.
if you don't want to know about it, they're gonna let you know about it.
Yeah. So it's that, and then we didn't have smartphones back then, so you're not always constantly
Checking your phone,
checking your phone.
distracted.
Yeah, distracted, or looking at social media, right? Because that's such an easy way to
Whew.
kill time.
Easy.
Yeah, and then we didn't have texting back then.
Yeah.
People would have a pager. Remember
No, they have. I'm pretty sure they had
Did
texting.
they really?
Yeah, back in the 90s.
Well, I
Maybe
don't
like
know.
the later
Maybe I
part.
didn't, because I was a little late
Oh
on the
my god.
technology.
I think it was like a little bit later. There was
Okay.
definitely texting.
But I remember the pager.
Yeah. Oh my
And
god. The beeper.
the beeper. Oh yeah, the beeper.
Beeper pager.
Same thing. Remember the brick phone?
Yeah.
You gotta be rich to have that.
Seriously. You
It
only
was
see that in movies now.
It was like this giant phone.
Gordon Gecko. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you had to pull up the antenna.
Yeah.
And if you're really wealthy, you would have one connected
Yeah.
in your car.
I know. You'd have to have an antenna and all that. It's kind of crazy.
That was awesome.
Yeah, I think the beeper and the pager, that was like a fad too. I remember kids like having that in school. Like I knew
Yeah.
a couple of kids that had it. Everyone's like, "Oh wow, that's so cool!" You know, they
Mhm.
were like the cool, the wealthy kids, or they just spent money on that. You know, begged their parents somehow.
Yeah.
But that was crazy. What is that like for people that might not know?
I have no idea. I've never.
What do you mean you don't have an idea? You don't know what a beeper is?
I do, but I never used one.
Yeah. You didn't see kids have it? So basically,
Yeah,
if
I
you,
saw them having it, but
it's like a separate number that people can call, and then it notifies you. It beeps, right? So
Uh-huh.
that it notifies you that, hey, somebody's calling you or wants to speak with you or whatever. And then you would go to an actual landline or a pay phone, and then you would
Oh,
make
the
a
pay
call.
phone.
Yeah. You would make a call back to the person. That's it. That's all it was. But it was such an innovation back then because, otherwise you don't know when the person's trying to reach out to you. But usually only medical professionals had that back then, no?
I mean, they still use that in the hospital,
Yeah.
but I think it's an updated version now.
Hopefully.
Because in the ones in the hospital, they actually have messages. Like, you could see
Yeah.
the messages.
Well, that's what the beeper would show too. Like it would show as a text. You definitely didn't know what that was. What the hell?
I didn't use one. I don't know. Touch you. I didn't even have
Late
a
to the game.
smartphone until a couple
Late to the
years
game.
ago.
Yeah. So did you feel like because of that lack of instant communication that you felt like people were more connected before? Like especially growing up, or do you think it was just different?
I think it's just different. I don't think I can't say that, people are not connected now because
Yeah,
we're extra connected
I
now.
know. It's so weird. Like, how
It's
do you
like
explain it?
it's like a different connection.
Well, it's weird because in like nowadays, it's more acceptable to communicate via text or DMs, right, through Instagram or the social media platforms.
Messengers, yeah.
So I remember, like I was telling you before, like when I called a buddy, like a few maybe a couple of years ago, when I called him and then he was like shocked. He's like, "Wait, why are you calling me?"
Yeah.
Because we were just texting, and then I called him because I'm like, dude, typing all this stuff, like it's so hard, right? I didn't want to have to go through like a deep conversation over text, right? So I wanted to call him, and
Yeah.
I called him. He picked up. He's like, "Hey, why are you calling me?"
Because now it's weird. The
So
only time you
weird.
get a phone call is like when it's an emergency.
Yeah. Well, you mean
Cr-
from friends and family, or
yeah. It creates almost like a panic.
yeah? It's like, well, why are they calling me?
Yeah. It's like, why?
No,
Like, it
people still
must be,
communicate by phone, like cell phone, obviously.
yeah. Sometimes.
Yeah, it's just a little bit different.
It's different. Yeah, the only time I'll really call someone is it's when there's an emergency.
I feel like people's communication skills aren't as I don't know. I wouldn't say not necessarily as good. It's just more like because they don't communicate frequently and often on via phone, right? They're more comfortable doing text than when you actually talk in person. Their communication skill goes down.
I think
It's a lack of practice.
the good thing about a text or a LinkedIn profile or Facebook or Instagram is that you can sit there and polish it.
Yeah,
It's
you
very
type it like 10 times before you send it.
it's very perfect.
Type delete, type delete.
Whereas when you communicate via phone or FaceTime, you can't sit there and polish your sentences or
think it through.
or the way you react to something.
Or it could be like a business text or call, or I mean a text and something like that you can send back to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
But you could be, I don't know, like lying in bed watching Netflix while you're texting. So it's like so convenient.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely game changer, right?
It is. It's
Yeah.
different.
So, okay. That's communication. And what about like the internet back then when it was in its infancy?
Oh my God, don't remind me. Dial up.
I don't
Remember
think a
those
lot of people
CD-ROMs?
even know what those are. What's dial up?
I don't really know because my brother was the one that kind of set it up.
So you basically have to connect to the internet by using a landline, like an actual phone line.
So what are the
right?
CDs? Like I see him always putting in a CD.
Well, so that's the CDs were like the AOL, like America Online. That was back then, like the big or internet service provider, and you used to have to pay for internet per hour, right? For your consumption. It wasn't like now where you're paying for a whole month, unlimited use of data and all that stuff, right? So back then you would only be restricted to a certain amount of time that you can use their plan, or you get charged per hour.
But you could get them for free too.
Yeah, so what they would do to promote their product would be like they send you a CD with like 50 hours worth of internet time or something. And so you would just collect a bunch of those basically.
Or sometimes you could grab those free CDs inside the little basket in front of like Kmart or Sears.
Yeah, exactly. Like trial versions, right? They want you to try their internet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was funny back then.
We would grab a couple.
Because dial-up was like really slow. Like
yeah. And if someone picked up the landline,
yeah,
then your internet will crash. Unless you have a separate landline, which was very expensive. So unless you had money, then you can't afford two landlines. Yeah. Because you would have to pay a monthly fee for these landlines.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so like when you're using the internet back then, if you wanted to download a file, it would take like days. Like if you wanted to download a movie or music or something like that, it'd probably have to stay overnight. And you better hope it didn't get disconnected.
So you would have to start over.
Yeah.
You can't continue where you left off.
Nope.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was like in development still. So you're like, oh my God, I hope nothing happens. And you're like guarding the phone, like
Don't answer.
Don't answer. Don't pick up the wrong line. My mom used to do that all the time by accident because she didn't know.
You guys had 2 landlines?
We did at some point in the 90s. Yeah. Because my dad was actually, he's a pretty quick adapter to technology, which is cool. So we had our first computer, like I think in the early 90s, and it was like a PC. It was giant. It's like super heavy, like bulky. The monitor was like huge. It's not like these flat screens nowadays that people have, right?
You would have the back.
Oh yeah. It was like a giant TV, and I was like, dude, this thing's like 50 pounds easily. And so that was our first computer. Was like the Pentium 1. It was like 75 megahertz, which is like nothing nowadays, like ridiculous. But that was like, oh my God, the fact that we had it was just amazing, right? But anyways, my mom would basically accidentally pick up the wrong phone or somehow, and then it disconnected us, and I was like, oh my God, gotta re-download.
You should have just taped it down.
Just reserved.
Yeah,
I know.
that way she can't answer it.
Yeah because it served as like that and a fax machine line too that my dad used. So anyways,
interesting.
Thank God we don't have to deal with that anymore.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, now it's like internet is so abundant, at least out here in the West. I mean, there's still, what's crazy is still a lot of part of the world still doesn't have access to internet.
Yeah.
So for us, it's like you don't even think about it anymore. It's like data and unlimited. It's fast, right? There's instant, which is cool.
Yeah.
So that's a huge plus. Well, what else? When you think about the 90s?
The 90s, I think.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff, right?
God,
but we try to narrow this episode at least down to a couple of categories.
Yeah. I think growing up in the 90s was interesting because to entertain ourselves, we didn't really have the internet to entertain ourselves. So
yeah, there was no YouTube. There was no YouTube,
Netflix. So going out to the movies or listening to music was a whole big ordeal.
I know, right? You would spend hours just listening to music or something.
Yeah. And it wasn't easy to get music. You would have to download it, which, it was a big deal because if you got disconnected, your list was gone.
Well, radio, right?
Yeah, the radio.
But you can't replay your songs and stuff.
No, the radio. But they had music and a CD started coming out.
Yeah. Well,
Music
audio tapes, yeah.
Yeah. Well, not just the tapes, but the CDs as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, you would burn music on the CD.
Yeah.
But in order to do that, you would have to download internet, and you have to download it, or you could walk down the street and buy a $5 bootleg. But
I remember kids selling CDs where they would burn music onto the CD. So basically, they would download it. Like, I don't know. Some kids were smart. They were like very entrepreneurial with their kids, right?
Yeah.
So they would like create a list, a playlist, and then they would download all those songs, put it on a CD, and then they would sell it to other kids in school.
They would bring these binders. Remember
binders.
The CD binders?
Yeah.
And then you would flip through their binders, and you would buy a CD for like $5 or something from them.
That was so crazy.
Yeah.
Hustling.
Yeah.
Right? Like in middle school.
Yeah. And then I had a little Walkman. Mm-hmm. But it's funny because it's called a Walkman, but you can't walk with it because the music would start skipping.
Yeah. You need the anti-shock or something on there.
Yeah, but that's later. That's like 3rd gen.
That's like
now you're
an
talking
innovative
about
technology.
Yeah, now you're talking about advanced technology.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah, or you couldn't squeeze the Walkman too tight because the CD would stop spinning and the music would stop.
You have to be very careful where you place it and make sure it doesn't move.
Exactly. It's called a Walkman, but you can't walk it anywhere.
Yeah. Hey, do you remember like CD changers? Like people put those in their cars. I know it came like later in the 90s, but it's like a CD changer in your car. So instead of one CD, you could switch, and it was like, ooh, you could have like 3 CDs at once in your car because those weren't that common, right?
And each CD had about 15 songs.
Yeah. So it would be the same damn songs over and over. Oh my God.
Oh,
so nostalgic.
That was great.
Yeah. I know. And like you would go like I felt like we went to the movies a lot more, right? As a family and stuff like that. We would go much more than now for
Mhm.
sure.
Yeah.
Like it's still nice. Don't get me wrong. I'm a huge movie person, right? I love movies, and it's still an experience, right? It's different, but it's not as common because you have so many more options now. Everybody streams and is more comfortable staying at home, right?
Yeah. And it's just more convenient too,
Oh,
because
for sure.
then back then you would have sit there and debate on which
Which
movie
movie? You better pick the
go
right
see.
one.
Yeah. Because if it's a sucky movie,
Well, too bad.
yeah,
You paid.
you paid. You're gonna sit through the entire movie. But now, it's kind of nice because everyone gets to pick a movie.
Again, there's so many options, right?
Yeah.
There's unlimited options.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you had that. And then I remember too, like, even before the CD, right? Because the CD was like pretty luxury at that point. You had those audio cassettes,
Oh yeah.
that you would use to record songs and things like that or whatever. And I remember like it was so ghetto. You would hear a favorite song, and the way to capture it was like point the recorder, the cassette recorder, directly towards the radio speakers, record the song on tape, and then that way I could replay it back. The quality wasn't great for sure, but it was like I thought I was such a genius.
Oh my god. And these machines were huge. You know,
Yeah.
it's so funny. I went home and my parents, they actually still have a cassette player in their
Wow.
home, a cassette with radio,
Yeah.
because they were fancy. And it sits in the master bedroom, and it sits right on top of the toilet. And I think,
Oh my God.
and this machine is as big as the toilet.
Yeah, the boom boxes. Is that what it was?
Yeah. It's this black Sony,
Mhm.
and they're huge. And I don't know why they don't just throw it away, but I mean, it's an antique now, so
Yeah.
I might want it one
Display
day
it for a museum.
yeah. I mean, I might want it one day for decorations or something.
Yeah.
You know, it actually still works.
Retro.
I tried it. It's working.
Wow. Good for them. Yeah. That's crazy though. Like you said, people nowadays growing up would definitely not know what the hell's a cassette player. What's a CD, right?
Mhm.
All that. The struggles.
The struggles.
Yeah,
the
they didn't know
slow
what it was
internet.
like.
What's
I know.
What's Wi-Fi?
Wi-Fi. Yeah, right. Yeah, you have to be connected. And if somebody trips on the wire, you're screwed. Oh man.
But sometimes the internet, the dial-up is so slow that like you would get disconnected anyway.
Yeah, or it would pause, right? Like
Yeah.
if you're downloading something, it stops and then your heart like skips a beat. It's like, oh no, what happened? Why is it not? It's still showing like it's downloading, but it's not
Yeah.
because it like froze or something.
Yeah. And keep in mind these internet search engines, their pages, their front landing pages are not like, they didn't have like news, or it was very plain
It wasn't
looking.
optimized.
Yeah.
Very empty. Yeah. Anyways, what about TV? Did you watch a lot of TV growing up?
Not a lot, but I did some when we had time, because you know, my mom, she would always make us learn extra after school.
Right.
So she'd make up homework. So
You didn't watch cartoons growing up?
I did, but I didn't, not as much as you did.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I watched some like Recess.
Yeah, that was a good show.
That's a good show.
Was that in the 90s though?
Yeah.
Oh.
I was a kid.
Recess? Oh yeah, that's a good show. Rugrats. Doug.
Oh yeah, Doug. Yeah.
All those shows.
Barney.
I would wake up early on the weekends, especially to watch those morning cartoons, Saturday morning cartoons. So good.
Yeah.
Oh man, I miss those shows.
Simpsons.
I don't know if it's just like nostalgia or whatever, but like I remember watching like a cartoon that one of my nieces was watching like when she was younger, and I'm like, this cartoon sucks.
You know which show?
It's like the quality's gone down.
I was obsessed with
But
Magic
they love it.
School Bus.
Oh yeah, Magic School Bus.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good show.
Good.
Yeah, lots of cartoons back then.
Yeah.
Ah,
What did you watch?
what do you mean? I just named a bunch.
You did?
Rugrats, Doug.
Those are my show.
Oh, okay. Those are your shows.
What did
Gummy
you watch?
Bears.
Wait, what?
Yeah, there was this show called Gummy Bears. There was
Oh, Banana in Pajamas.
oh my God.
You remember?
Yeah, that was on
Banana
Cartoon Network,
in
right?
pajamas are walking down the
Okay,
stairs.
please. Stop. What else was there? There was a lot of good shows back
I don't
then.
even know if that's the lyrics.
The after school cartoons and all that stuff too.
Yeah, that was
You know?
fun.
Yeah. And we didn't have cable for a long time. Did you? Cable TV, not
No.
cable internet.
No, we probably didn't have cable until probably the 2000s.
Mm,
Yeah, I didn't have any cable.
yeah. Most people didn't,
Yeah,
right? Because you had to pay. It was expensive.
it was very expensive.
Yeah, because you'd have to pay the monthly subscription, but you had to pay the installation fee, all that.
You had to pay for the box too.
Yeah, the cable box.
Yeah.
The black box. Yeah, we got hooked up by the cable guy. We paid them a little bit extra, and they got us connected
Nice.
for free.
Yeah,
So you get to watch all the channels. But that was a big deal back then.
because back then it was easy.
Yeah.
If you lived in a house, let's say if you moved in an apartment or a house with a box,
Mhm.
and if you saw the cable guys walking around, sometimes they'll just turn it on.
Yeah.
All they had to do was turn on the box, and that was it.
Yeah, and then like you would go to your friend's house since you didn't have cable at home and they did, like, you know,
Yeah.
one of the friends that had it, everyone would go there and just hang out and watch shows and stuff. That was cool.
Yeah.
I know.
It was interesting. And so my dad would take us on these little adventures just to, kind of, I don't know, look at random things and try out different restaurants and stuff. And in order to do that, we would first have to open the yellow page book, find
Dude.
a place we want to go to, and then give him the address, and then he'll map it on a Thomas guide.
Yeah. Thomas guides. People don't even know what that is. Again, like people that are growing up right now, the kids, like, what's a Thomas guide? It's like Google Maps, right? Do you remember like how crazy it was if you're on a vacation or you're driving somewhere, like, you know, like
You
your
get
dad.
lost?
Yeah, you get lost. Like, where the hell are you on the map?
You would have to pull over.
Yes.
Look at the streets.
Oh my God. Find the cross streets.
Find the cross streets. Sometimes you're in the middle of nowhere, so you would have to drive to the closest. You would have to drive to the closest cross street, and then if you saw someone walking by and you're not sure what city you're in, you have to ask them, and then you open up the book to the city and whatever zip code.
And look at the grid, right? Which section, A51 or something.
Thank God I don't have to do that because, I'm terrible with the map.
Yeah, you'd have to stop at a gas station, right, and ask for directions. And it was always like the walk of shame. Like, or my dad refused every time. He's like, no, I'll figure it out. He would bust out the Thomas guide. I'm like, Dad, we're clearly lost.
But I don't understand when people give directions. It's like, okay, so you're going to go down the street. You're going to go west on whatever street for about 3 miles. I'm already
and then you
lost.
make a turn on this left hill. You see that, and then you'll see like a green like tree, and it's like, what? Huh? It's not very helpful. Yeah, it's
my mom.
You're like trying to jot down, like, you're nodding your head, pretending like yeah.
Like, okay, so this one time, I decided to follow my mom's directions on, I'm like, okay, fine, I'll take directions from her verbally and try to figure it out because I kind of know the area. She's like, yeah, when you see the palm trees, make a left, right? I literally drove like 5 miles past the person's house looking for palm trees that didn't exist. Those trees that she saw, they're not even palm trees.
But she thought they were palm trees. That's how she described them.
Yeah. And I called her. I'm like, Mom, I don't see the house, and I'm all the way in, I swear, in another city. And she's like, yeah, you passed the place a long time ago. So I turned back and I saw her waiting for me in the front. And I looked and I was like, Mom, where are the palm trees? She's like, those. And I was like, Mom, dude, those are not palm trees.
That's freaking funny. How pissed were you? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And that's scary. Like, how did people navigate back then, right? Like,
yeah.
I mean, it's crazy, especially if you're traveling to another country or things like that. I mean, we were kids, so we didn't have to deal with that. But like, I try to think about it. I'm like, dude, how did you do it?
Yeah. So when I first started driving, that was probably like 2000s already. So the technology has advanced a lot.
Yeah.
But talking about the advancement, it's not like a smartphone advance,
No.
right? So there's Google Maps.
MapQuest.
Yeah, or MapQuest. But
So you got to print it out.
yeah, I would have to print it out from my address and try to follow.
Print out the directions, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah, and try to follow that directions. And you better print one going back home.
Yeah, that's right. Usually you forget. It's like you print one there, and then you have to reverse the directions, or hopefully,
Yeah,
you printed it out already. But
it's pretty good.
yeah.
But I remember since I didn't have the technology growing up, I remember playing outside a lot, little games, and like I had this little toy called Skip It.
Oh my god, I think I do remember that.
So every time you so it's like this.
It's like a freaking shackle to your
yeah.
And then you swing it, right?
Yeah,
or something?
you would swing that shackle and you would skip on the other foot.
Yeah,
right?
the other foot would jump over. It was so stupid when you think about it. It's like, wait, and how much did that cost? Like $50 or something, probably?
Toys were very expensive back
I know.
then. It was a luxury, definitely. So yeah, it was probably like $50, and I was so cool because I had to skip it, right?
Oh
I can see the motion on my feet too, like doing it.
Yeah.
I was obsessed with that thing, and every time you do a skip,
it would count.
It would count,
Oh
and that's the advanced version because the first version didn't have that.
Yeah.
But now to think about it, that thing is so dangerous. If I swung that thing and it slips out of your feet or like it hits somebody, I swear it could have break their ankle or their head.
Or you, yeah. You could have fallen or whatever. Yeah, but you're right. Toys back then were definitely a much bigger thing, right? Bigger part of our childhood. Like, I mean, kids nowadays for sure still play with toys. I just think, though, there's a lot more options, like because of the computer, right? They're usually glued to the screen or they're playing video games, right? I would think they're much bigger now than when we were growing up where it was toys. That's why, like, companies like Toys R Us became so damn big, right?
Yeah. And the other one was what, FAO Shorts or something?
FAO Shorts? What is that?
It's another toy shop.
I don't know.
I don't know. It's in the mall. I think that's what they're called.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure. Now you're making me confused.
Well, I think more people would know Toys R Us. But...
yeah. It was like a fantasy land.
Mm-hmm.
You walk in there and it's just all toys and it's colorful and
yeah, you could have like fun with like Legos and things like that as a kid, and you just use your imagination a lot more.
Yeah. That's what we did growing up a lot. Every weekend my dad would take us to the mall, and so we can just go window shopping, run to the toy store. Remember when they had the mall pet stores?
Yes. Yeah, there was a parrot that was in that pet store at the mall, the local mall, and it was notorious because I guess kids were messing with it, of course, right? Because the parrot repeats back, whatever they say, and it started learning how to cuss. So every time, for some reason, when I would go in there, it would cuss at me, like it would call me names, and I'm just walking by. I'm like, what? Did somebody just say something? And I didn't realize it was like, oh, it's a parrot. It's like right behind me. That's why. Yeah. Like, who's calling me names? Like, walk into the store. So I get harassed every time. But I don't know. I kept going back. Maybe I like the abuse. I don't know. But those were big back then, right? Yeah. Pet stores, like they would have them all the time, like in malls, and kids would play with like the little puppies and bunny rabbits and stuff like that.
Oh, and talking about the mall, so this is for special occasions. So for special occasions, like your birthday or whatever, Christmas, holidays, or when I had a little extra money, my friends and I, we would take glamour shots.
What is that?
So basically, you go inside.
Is that what they're called?
Yeah, they're called glamour shots. So you would go inside basically a photo shop.
Photo booth.
It's not a booth.
Oh.
It's an actual like shop.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. This
Yeah.
was like in like middle school and that time frame.
Yeah, and you would have like little hearts
Oh my
background or like
god.
little
The little foggy
clouds.
like filter, right?
Yeah.
Oh my
This was
god, that's right.
pre-Instagram days, okay?
Yes, the original
This
filters,
is
right?
the original filters. So you'll have like so you go into the shop and usually it's on the wall, the different backgrounds that they had.
Yeah.
So you can have like pink hearts or blue clouds or like a gray background, whatever it's available. And black was in for a while too, a black background. You'll pick your background, and then they set you up. You usually sit on a little stool or whatever. You do these like funky poses with
Oh
like
my
remember
goodness, that's right.
your
Yeah.
your hands
The
on your
cutesy
chin,
poses.
and then you do like or like the still shot or the leg cross, and then they would take photos of you. And then about an hour later, you return to the Photoshop, and they'll have all the samples ready for you to pick from. So you'll pick 2 to 3 photos that you like, and they'll print out a stack of like 50 of them. So the next day, you go to school and you pass them out to your friends.
Start handing them out. I remember getting those, and then like the girls would write like a message on the back or something with little hearts, and then
Yeah.
they hand them out to people. I was like,
And it was hilarious. People were getting offended if they didn't get
yeah,
a photo
yeah, yeah.
of you.
If you weren't popular or whatever enough or whatever, right?
Yeah.
You didn't get one. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
sad.
Or you saw someone with a photo that you didn't get. You're like, wait.
Yeah, what the hell?
Yeah.
And you keep it in your wallet. Oh
Yeah.
man.
And then when you see
I
the
totally
person,
forgot
when you
about
see
that.
the person, you're like, hey, I have a photo for you.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I bet you some people still have some of those.
I do. I do.
think I have some too. I forgot where I
Yeah.
kept them, but
I have a
it's in a
box.
box somewhere. Yeah.
I should open it one day.
That'll be fun to look through. Oh man, you're right. It's like that foggy lens. Like it looks.
Oh, that's later.
Yeah.
That's later.
Oh, okay.
The first couple years, it was pretty
Just
like
pretty straight.
pretty like basic, and you look kind of choppy a little, like
yeah.
very you look very real.
That's so funny. That's funny.
Yeah.
Totally
To
forgot
get
about
that
those.
filter look, it was like a more specialized photo place.
More advanced.
Yeah, more advanced, and you had to pay more money. It was like more expensive.
Yeah. Oh, it was an interesting time for sure. Growing up in the 90s, and there's so much,
We
right?
should do one. I know there's a photo shop
Oh,
that's
no.
still open.
Oh no, you heard it here first. So if we
Yeah.
post it on Instagram, it's like a throwback, right? It's a throwback
No, we
photo.
really should. I know there's a shop that it's still open, that they do that still. Or I can set one up and do it for us.
I'm sure they probably have a filter, right? Nowadays, like we're on your phone
I
where you
don't
can
want the
easily do
filter.
that.
I want
You
the
want to go through the
real-
full blown
Yeah,
experience?
I want to do the whole wait time and everything.
Oh man, you have that much time on your hands, huh?
Well,
Okay, interesting. That could be a cool, like a little date,
yeah,
a throwback, like like a 90s style date or something.
yeah.
Get dressed up and
And then we can't use Google Maps either.
oh no. Just to make things interesting. Oh my god.
We can't use. I'm gonna give you a Thomas guide.
Here you go. Okay, that would be actually pretty funny. Like from start to finish, the date has to be pretending like we went back in time and it's like the 90s right now. And
You
got
have
to
to dress
figure it
like
out.
the 90s. I mean the 80s. No, sorry, the
80s?
90s. Sorry, the 90s.
80s, I was just born. I was like
just
5 years
born.
old, maybe.
I was 3 years old when the 80s ended for me. But yeah, so you have to dress like the 90s too.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm down. You're not down.
I am down. Actually, I still have some bell bottoms at my parents'
Oh,
house
Interesting.
that I probably still fit in because I never grew.
Oh, those. I think it's some of that fashion is coming back too, right? I mean, the bell bottoms weren't invented in the 90s, but
No.
it was kind of popular again back then too, right?
Yeah, it got popular again.
Yeah, people had those like flared, right, bottoms, and
Yeah.
like I remember people like cutting it too, didn't they? Like it was like folds, like they cut it on the side.
I'm not
the
sure
bottom?
about cutting it.
Yeah, maybe I'm
I was
mistaken.
still
but-
fairly young. I was,
yeah.
at 13. I don't know if my parents were letting me cut my clothes.
Anyways, yeah. So there's still, I mean, a lot of things that we could talk about for sure in the 90s,
Oh.
about the 90s and growing up in that period.
I
you know.
love the
But
90s.
it's just it's such a broad category because that's a whole 10 years, right? A whole decade of content and ideas and things like that. And it's like, man, even like just thinking about it and talking about it right now, it's so, I don't know, it makes you feel a certain way. I'm pretty sure everybody as they get older too.
Makes you feel like warm and fuzzy.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like fond memories. Like you said, when you're a kid, it's like very carefree. It's you don't have all these stresses and worries as much as you are as an adult, right? Um, and it's probably a lot different for sure than kids today who deal with. I personally think they deal with a lot more stress than we did when we were kids.
Yeah.
There's coming more stuff coming at them now, than ever.
Yeah, I think it's with the smartphone and the digital age, they can't really ever disconnect
Yeah, right.
from
It's
the
nice
outside
to.
world.
Hmm.
Whereas for us, even if we got bullied at school or it was a bad day at school or kids were mean to you, at least when you came home, it was safe
Yeah, for us.
for us.
Yeah, not
Yeah.
everybody has that, but
Yeah.
yeah,
I
I know
mean,
what you're
we're very
saying.
fortunate. But even nowadays, even if they had kids, if they're bullied and they had a safe home to come to, it doesn't end for them though. They can just turn on social media and the bullying begins again.
Hopefully not. But yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's very hard to get away
Yeah.
completely. Well, that took a dark turn.
I don't know.
We went from talking about toys to like bullying again. So let's end on a light note, though.
Yeah.
So, what else can you think about, or what else would you like to leave these beautiful listeners with? A warm and fuzzy feeling
A
about the
warm and
90s.
fuzzy feeling. Oh, I just love the 90s. I don't know. I get so nostalgic
Yeah.
talking about the 90s and my childhood um and all these like toys that we had, the
I feel
glam
like,
shots,
yeah.
just everything.
I don't know if I mean it's probably not true, but I feel that way because again, growing up in that period, I feel like it's almost like I think everybody looks back in their childhood and they think, back then, more innocent to a simpler time to a more carefree time, right?
Yeah.
Again, I love living in the present for sure, and I wouldn't have it any other
No,
way.
I wouldn't go back to the
But
90s.
I am very glad that was able to experience that decade of history,
Yeah. But even though as advanced as we think things are right now,
Right.
I'm pretty sure that the kids growing up at this moment with the technology that we would consider advanced,
Hmm.
right? They're gonna look back and
Same thing.
and
Yeah.
feel the same thing because technology, it's an
Always.
exponential
Yeah.
change.
Ever changing, always
Yeah.
moving forward. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and I think the biggest thing is just it's cool to. I think it's important to remember your past and to be able to learn from it, experience it, kind of reminisce, right?
Yeah.
Every once in a while is very nice, and you can tell just talking to other people that have grown up in different eras or different decades. There's a lot of differences, but like you said, there's also a lot of things that are the same, which is cool too, right?
Yeah.
People are still people. So,
Yeah.
cool. So we want to hear from you guys. I think we're gonna probably do maybe another episode of this, maybe
Yeah.
more, because we definitely have some other things that we want to share about growing up in the 90s, or just that whole decade. Very interesting decade for us. So we'd love to hear from you if you have anything that you want us to talk about or discuss.
Or share your experience. If you grew up in the 90s, let
You're a
us
90s
know.
baby.
Yeah, let us know what it was like for you. Did you do any of these things that we mentioned or have
Yeah.
any of these things?
Yeah, cool. And so be sure to like, subscribe to our channel. We have a YouTube channel at Magnetic Mismatch, but of course, our main content is present on the Apple Podcasts. So like and subscribe there. Give us a 5-star rating, and if you have some time, we'd really appreciate a review. And make sure you also follow us right on Instagram. Speaking of social media, at Magnetic Mismatch. And also to
Share our content. with someone you think that would enjoy our podcast or can benefit from some of the topics we've talked about. And
That's
we
it.
release new content
Oh,
every
yeah, that's
Thursday.
good job. Look at you.
Oh,
That
well.
is true. That is very true. We do put out new episodes every Thursday.
Yeah.
So, okay, I think that's it.
Until then,
All right. Bye bye now.
bye.